Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for Sunday, December 14th, 2014, around 8:15 p.m. in Belleville, Massachusetts. Cold out, but it's about 32 degrees freezing, and it's, a little bit tolerable. It's not bitterly cold, no wind chill values. This upcoming week, weather-wise, in this area is going to be average. It's temperatures and a lot of sunshine and stuff. We need to see the sunshine. Last week we didn't have too much sunshine, a lot of precipitation. Next Sunday could be real interesting. It could be a rain or snow storm. We'll wait and see on that. Some news to report: the Denver Broncos won the AFC West title for the fourth straight year, and LA Lakers star Kobe Bryant just passed Michael Jordan to go on to third place on the all-time NBA scoring list. He needs over 4,000 more points to reach Karl Malone and kind of 7,000 more points to reach Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I wonder if he'll get it. Who knows? And that's about it on that. My third and final video blog of the night will be about my personality profile. My personality profile tonight is about WWE Hall of Famer Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Ricky wrestled professionally for over 18 years, mainly in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling / NWA / WCW and WWE. He was one of the most famous wrestlers of all time, and he's one of the only wrestlers to wrestle strictly as a babyface. He never wrestled as a heel, which is surprisingly. Ricky Steamboat was born in West Point, New York. His father was of English descent, and his mother was from Japanese American descent. And his brother Vic was also a professional wrestler as well. Ricky Steamboat's real name is Richard Blood, and he was an amateur wrestler in high school in New York, and then he went to the world of professional wrestling. He was trained by Vern Gagne and the Iron Sheik to become a professional wrestler. He started his wrestling career in the AWA. Then in 1976, Ricky went to Championship Wrestling from Florida, and the promoter Eddie Graham changed his name because he was wrestling in the AWA under his real name, Richard Blood. He thought Blood was sounded like too heelish, and he gave Ricky's the name Ricky Steamboat because there used to be a wrestler who wrestled in Championship Wrestling from Florida, Sam Steamboat, and Ricky bore a resemblance of Sam Steamboat, and he was billed as Sam Steamboat's nephew, even though they weren't related. And there was a story that Ricky told that the ring announcer said that Richard Blood could not be here tonight, but taking his place was Ricky Steamboat. And Ricky says, I'm here, because Ricky's real name's Richard Blood. And he says, get over there, kid. This is part of the thing. And then Ricky just acknowledges everything. He wrestled for Championship Wrestling for Florida for about a year. Then in 1977, he started wrestling in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, the major NWA promotion, which was run by Jim Crockett. For the next 8 years, he was a main player in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, winning the U.S. title several times, the Mid-Atlantic Championship several times, the Mid-Atlantic TV Championship a few times. He teamed with a lot of tag team partners like Paul Jones. They were NWA World Tag Team Champions a few times. Also, Jay Youngblood. He and Jay Youngblood were NWA World Tag Team Champions a few times. And Ricky Steamboat feuded with a lot of wrestlers in his time at Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. He had a feud with Nature Boy Ric Flair, which is a legendary feud in the 70s and 80s. Their part of the Mid-Atlantic feud is when Ricky Steamboat ripped off Flair's clothes on television. Also, Ricky Steamboat feuded with Big John Studd, Ken Patera, Tully Blanchard, Paul Jones, Wahoo McDaniel, and a few others. And in tag teams, he and Jay Youngblood had a feud with Sergeant Slaughter and Don Canotto. They had a classic match, the last battle of something like in a cage match at Greensboro Coliseum for the NWA World Tag Team titles. Also, they had a classic feud with the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry Briscoe. The Briscoes turned heel on Steamboat and Youngblood and stuff like that. Ricky continued to wrestle for Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling to the end of 1984 when he got a dispute with Dusty Rhodes, who was a booker in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. There were rumors that Ricky Steamboat requested to be turned heel, but Dusty said that nobody would buy you as a heel. They think even if you attack the face, it would still cheer you. Ricky left Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and signed with the WWE, and he made his debut in the WWE in early 1985. He was on the first WrestleMania wrestling against Matt Bourne. He beat Matt Bourne. Then around the summer of 1985, Ricky Steamboat changed his wrestling attire. He dressed like, wore ninja pants and stuff like that, and kind of did martial arts, and he was rechristened Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and he used that nickname for the rest of his career. He got into a feud with the Magnificent Morocco, and they had a long feud. There was one angle they did on Championship Wrestling when Magnificent Morocco and Mr. Fuji hung Ricky Steamboat onto the ring ropes and stuff, and Ricky Steamboat dominated that feud. He fought Mr. Fuji and the Magnificent Morocco. He even had the Junkyard Dog as his tag team partner to face Morocco and Fuji on a Saturday night's main event. Then Ricky Steamboat wrestled Hercules at WrestleMania 2, beating him easily. Originally for WrestleMania 2, it was going to be Ricky the Dragon Steamboat against Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 2, but that was scrapped because they put Bret the Hitman Hart in that 20-man battle royal. And also, over the summer of 1986, Ricky Steamboat got into a feud with Jake the Snake Roberts. This angle started at Saturday night's main event when Jake the Snake Roberts gave Steamboat the DDT, and Steamboat was knocked out cold. It was on the concrete floor because they didn't use protective mats back then, and Steamboat was out for a while. And when they had a feud, they had a snake pit matches. Ricky brought a dragon, like a Komodo dragon, to battle Jake the Snake Roberts' snake, and they had some snake pit matches where were classics. Then Steamboat went into a feud with Macho Man Randy Savage over the IC title, and they did that classic angle where Steamboat crushed his larynx and he had to be off of television for a while, had to relearn how to talk and stuff like that. And then they had a classic WrestleMania 3 match for $93,000 at the Pontiac Silverdome, which stole the show at WrestleMania 3. Steamboat small package Savage to win the WWE IC Championship, and Steamboat was prime position for a long IC title reign, but he wanted to spend time with his wife, who was going to have their newborn baby boy, which was named Ricky Steamboat Jr. Ricky Steamboat only held the Intercontinental title for 2 months. Then he lost it to the Honky Tonk Man at a WWE Superstars of Wrestling TV taping in June of 1987. And he took some time off, but when he got back, he got pushed by the WWE. He was not in their long-term plans. He had a classic match with Ravishing Rick Rude at the first Royal Rumble, and then at WrestleMania 4, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat wrestled Greg the Hammer Valentine in the first round in the WWE title tournament, and the same bracket was Macho Man Randy Savage. If Steamboat won, he would have faced Macho Man Randy Savage in the second round, and it was a plan that Savage was going to beat Steamboat, but I think the WWE was still punishing Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, so he lost, and he was set to face off against Greg the Hammer to Valentine, but Ricky Steamboat retired from professional wrestling for about 9 months until he got a call from the NWA, like Jim Hurt, to come back to the NWA, and he signed a long-term contract with NWA and WCW, and he got put in a feud with Nature Boy Ric Flair over the WCW World Title, the NWA World Title. He came back as a mystery partner for Eddie Gilbert on WCW in January of 1989, and then Flair and Steamboat had classic matches over the NWA World Championship. Steamboat won the NWA World Championship at Chi-Town Rumble 1989. Then they had lots of great matches at house shows and on television. Had the Clash of the Champions 5 at New Orleans at the Superdome. Only drove 5,000, but that was a classic 58-minute match. And they had a third match at Wrestle War 1989 with Flair regained the NWA World Championship over Steamboat. Then Steamboat started a feud with Lex Luger over the U.S. title. Luger turned on Steamboat, and they had a feud at the Great American Bash 1989, but that was Steamboat's last match in WCW NWA for 2 years, because shortly after that match, he left the NWA over a contract dispute. Heard something that his payoff for Wrestle War 89 was he didn't agree with it, so he left NWA/WCW for like the next year and a half. Steamboat wrestled on and off for New Japan Wrestling and a few Southern independent wrestling promotions. He came back to the WWE as simply the Dragon in 1991 as a fire-breathing dragon, a gimmick and stuff like that. And Steamboat wrestled for the WWE for about 9 months, and he was not acknowledged as Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He was just known as the Dragon, and he was treated as a newcomer, and he was stuck in that gimmick, but there was something that he was supposed to be stuck in that gimmick until a main event spot opened, which it didn't do, and the fire-breathing dragon gimmick was pretty good, but Steamboat did not go anywhere, and he left the WWE in the fall of 1991 after he refused to do jobs at TV tapings, a stretcher job to The Undertaker and IRS. He left the WWE, and he returned to WCW at the November Clash of Champions to be the mystery partner of Dustin Rhodes. Him and Dustin Rhodes beat the Enforcers Larry Zbyszko and Arn Anderson to become the WCW World Tag Team Champions. They held the belts for 2 months until they lost to Arn Anderson and Bobby Eaton. Then Steamboat gets into a feud with Ravishing Rick Rude over the U.S. title. They had some classic matches, including an Iron Man match at the first Beach Blast in 1992, June of 1992, which is classic. Then Steamboat gets into a feud with Steve Austin over the WCW TV Championship. Steamboat beats Austin at the Clash of Champions in September 1992. He only holds the TV title for a month. Then he loses it to Scott Steiner. They were trying to turn Scott Steiner heel, but that didn't work because Scott Steiner left WCW shortly after. Then Steamboat gets paired up in tag teams again with Shane Douglas. And Shane Douglas and Steamboat beat Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham for the World Tag Team Championships at the November 1992 Clash of Champions. And they held it for about 4 months until they lost to the Hollywood Blondes, Brian Pillman and Steve Austin. And then they had a classic feud, and they had where like Steamboat wrestled under mask as Dos Hombres, which was a Mexican tag team, and the other mask was Shane Douglas. But when they had a match at Slamboree 1993, it was Shane Douglas wasn't under that match. That was Brad Armstrong, because Shane Douglas left WCW. Then Steamboat got put into a feud with Paul Orndorff over the TV title. He won at the Clash of Champions in August 1993, but he lost it to a month later for Lord Steven Grego. And Steamboat for the next few months in WCW were putting people over and stuff. And in 1994, in like spring of 1994, he goes back to feuding with Ric Flair over the WCW World Championship. They had some classic matches at Spring Stampede and on WCW Saturday Night. These were great matches. I thought like Steamboat was going to win the WCW World Championship at Spring Stampede, but it wasn't meant to be. He lost the rematch to Flair over the vacant WCW World title, and then Steamboat then goes into a feud with stunning Steve Austin over the WCW U.S. Championship. They have a great match at Clash of Champions where Steamboat wins the WCW World title. No, U.S. title, but then in September, Steamboat suffers a career-ending injury to his back. He has to forfeit the U.S. title, and then Steamboat's career was over. He was terminated by WCW by a FedEx letter to his house. For the next 8 years, Steamboat was not in professional wrestling, period. He came back in 2002 as kind of an official for TNA for a few shows, and then 2004 he was part of Ring of Honor. He was mentoring some wrestlers, including CM Punk, and then he got into a verbal feud with Mick Foley. And in 2005, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat returned to the WWE as a producer / world agent, and he's been with the WWE ever since. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame of 2009, and he actually kind of had a brief comeback in 2009, feuding with Chris Jericho, and you still see Ricky Steamboat from time to time on WWE TV. And Ricky Steamboat a couple of times requested to turn heel, but Dusty Rhodes in 1984 says, even if you hit a babyface wrestler, they'll still cheer you. He also proposed an idea when he came back to the WWE in 1991 to Pat Patterson, was a booker of the WWE back then. He said, I want to become heel. I could wrestle as under a mask, and then they could build up some baby face and they unmask me and go from there. But like Pat Patterson says, even if we do that, they're still going to cheer you. Steamboat was one of those wrestlers, even if he did some heel tactics, even if he was a heel, they would still cheer him, because you could not buy him as a heel. Ricky Steamboat was a true baby face, in my opinion. You could not turn him heel, in my opinion. Even if he attacked a big baby face wrestler, they would still cheer him, in my opinion. And Ricky Steamboat's a legend in the world of professional wrestling, and they had a few DVDs about him in 2010. The WWE had put out a DVD, The Life of the Dragon. I had that, and I also had an old Coliseum VHS tape of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat matches and stuff. They're clipped, but they're pretty good. I don't have that DVD anymore, and that's about it. Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Tomorrow, 3 more video blogs. First one will be about the top 10 greatest Pittsburgh Pirates players of all time, and then the second one will be about a sports issue. I'm not going to say what it is until tomorrow, and the third and final video blog of the night will be about Bobby Hall. This week's going to be personality profiles, will be about Chicago sports legends. Monday, Bobby Hall. Tuesday, Frank Thomas. Thursday, Wednesday, it's going to be about Walter Payton, and Friday's Michael Jordan. Thursday, I'm not going to do a personality profile. And coming soon to these video blogs, definitely going to be about Julie Broughton and Heidi Lee Pratt, 2 great ladies with nice smiles and great legs. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.